Good morning, everybody. We have finally reached the end of this long duration precipitation event, and we're kind of to the main event now as after several waves of low pressure have moved up along the front that we've been talking about and through this trough that we've been talking about over the last few days. We're finally to the storm system that is rapidly developing, and I wanted to show you the radar to give you an idea of what that means for our weather today. Today will be a pretty changeable day. This morning things aren't too bad out there travel-wise. We have basically mostly rain. Roads are basically wet. We're still hovering right around 31 to 33 degrees, which means there's still a little ice accumulating, particularly on the sidewalks and on the trees a little bit. But because temperatures are that warm, the salt on the roads has basically meant that the roads are not too bad this morning. That, however, could change, particularly this afternoon, because our temperatures will crash this afternoon. We will change back to snow, and things will get interesting. So I just wanted to give you a quick look first at what we're looking at. Obviously, here's our developing low pressure system. We're going to look at this on satellite radar imagery in a little bit, and that will give you a better idea of what's going on. But this is definitely a very rapidly intensifying storm, and the storm is going to head kind of right over us. It's a very kind of strain, then it's going to kind of jump off the coast finally here in the Gulf of Maine. This is not a typical storm track. Storms usually want to stay off the coast or to the west of the Appalachian Mountains. This is an unusual storm forecast, and it's leading to some kind of interesting, different transitions than we often see. My rule of thumb for transitions is essentially if we're rain in the beginning, by the time we change to snow, we probably aren't going to get any accumulation. I think this storm will be different, although we'll have to see because its storm track is very strange. So like I said, normally you'd have either something developing here and heading up this way. That would be all snow if that had happened. And you know how close to the coast it gets is up there, or can be different. Or you'd have something developing here and kind of heading this direction. To develop kind of on the spine of the Appalachian Mountains is very strange. But the upper level dynamics are so strong, and the Appalachians aren't so tall. So essentially, this is kind of bucking all the trends in that regard. And so as part of that, we do have this big. Let me get rid of some of these. Excuse me. Some of the mess here I've got on the screen and point out one thing I wanted to point out in radar. Whoops. Let's try that one more time. What did I do here? Apparently we're locked on with, can I draw new stuff? I can, but I can't erase. That's strange. Okay, well, let's go to satellite then. We'll show it to you on, oh, there we go, finally. Okay, so we have, you can see this dry air that's kind of to the east of, and sort of between the surge of moisture. This is kind of one of the storms from yesterday that's kind of off in this direction here now, or maybe somewhere in here, the low pressure system. Anyways, we have what we normally call a dry slot here, which is a dry slot. And we're still sort of in that, and we're actually going to be in that, which is keeping our precipitation this morning light, whereas out to our west, heavy rain, snow, sleet, all that kind of stuff is definitely developing. And as this storm moves through, we'll get this tail to kind of sweep through, and it'll sweep through over the top of us, and we will make the transition back to snow. And we could pick up a couple, some heavy snow briefly this afternoon. So let me show this to you on satellite, because I think this shows an interesting picture. You can actually see where the storm is developing. Here we have the storm developing right here. You can see when so often you always get the clouds developing strongest off to the east of the storm. That's normal. But when you see this kind of motion here, which is some high cloud tops on the west side of the storm, that is an indication of extremely heavy snow. If you're over western New York today, and that will move into kind of central New York and some of the tail end down here as well, it's going to briefly snow. Up there will be more than briefly. It's going to snow very hard. We could be talking 2 to 3, maybe even 4 inches an hour in some of those bands. We could briefly get through that as this part, as the storm kind of hooks to the right here. the tail, this part of the storm here will swing through. It's going to happen relatively quickly, but it could mean for an hour or two after we change over to snow, which should happen just after noon, sometime between 1 and 3 o'clock, I think we change over. We could get 1 to 2 or 3 hours of pretty heavy snow. Enough heavy snow that even though it won't accumulate at first because the roads are wet, or because everything's kind of wet and a little bit warmer, we could easily pick up 2 to 4, maybe even 5 inches of snow in just a couple of hours. It's going to happen real quick. It's also going to get, temperature's going to drop pretty significantly when that happens. We could drop into the mid 20s, even lower 20s by the time the snow lets up. And so what that means is the roads are also going to freeze up pretty quickly. So travel could be pretty treacherous this afternoon. You just need to kind of be aware of that. Until then, it shouldn't be bad. We're still getting kind of, because we're not going to drop in temperature much. So yes, it is sort of freezing rain out there right now, but it's warm enough that the salt is working and the roads won't be too bad. But it could get briefly very bad this afternoon, basically almost impassable. You may be able to not really, winds are also going to pick up, so it's going to be hard to see. And then things will get better this evening. So as the storm pulls away, we are going to get briefly windy. We could have wind gusts to 30, 40 miles an hour. Shouldn't be enough to really cause any power issues. I don't think we're going to have any power issues out of all this. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But it is going to be bad, windy enough that it's going to be very hard to see briefly. And this evening travel will still be bad as we're going to have a lot of wind-blown snow and some snow showers around. That should all kind of shut off and the winds start to die out. The storm moves through pretty quickly and the winds start to die out by tomorrow, probably by midnight and certainly through the overnight. By tomorrow morning, it's still breezy, but and there could still be a little blowing snow around. But basically, things should be wrapped up and the road should be getting much better. And we kind of finally transition away from all this precip to a day. There's going to be a lot of clouds around tomorrow still, but we won't see anything falling from the sky for the most part. So let me just give you a kind of the highlight on the forecast there then. Light to moderate rain and freezing rain this morning. Like I said, depending on what your temperature is, you may still be getting a little bit of additional glazing happening. And that should continue through the morning. It may pick up in intensity a little bit as we head towards midday. Between 1 and 3 p.m., we change to snow as the storm moves basically right over the top of us almost. And precipitation comes down quickly. We're going to get a quick 2 to 5 inches this afternoon as the changeover happens and temperatures crash. The roads will get briefly, like I said, very bad. Travel could be very bad late this afternoon and this evening. And winds will pick up this evening with blowing snow through midnight. By tomorrow morning, things should be pretty good. If you have a chance to ski tomorrow on Saturday, it should be a pretty good day. It could still be a little breezy. You're going to need to bundle up more than you've needed to, although it's not going to be brutally cold. Temperatures in the low 20s with a brisk wind, but nothing that's undoable. And I think the wind should let up enough that there really shouldn't be that much in the way of wind holds tomorrow morning. I will certainly answer any questions you've got in the comments section as we look forward, and then I will continue to keep you updated. We do have a chance for, it looks like, a couple of smaller storms next week, but the pattern does seem to be quieting down a little bit as we head forward. Stay safe out there, particularly if you're traveling this afternoon. Just keep an eye towards when that changeover happens. And thanks everybody for following me over the last few days as we've been through quite the adventure with these last couple of storms.